Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Lawrence and we are back with our another 8 must-starts for Week 16, Week 2 of the playoffs. These ones count more than anything. I also want to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. This will be the last time I'm talking to you guys before Christmas hits. Of course, we'll be back with more after Christmas, but I want to make sure I get that out of the way right away. And before we jump into our 8 must-starts, before we let you know who needs to be locked into your playoff matchups, whether you're trying to win the championship or avoid that punishment, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our content coming up, our NFL playoff content, draft content, offseason, dynasty content, all of that. Well, without further ado, let's jump in and start like we always do with our first quarterback. We're going to start with Justin Fields. I know last week, if you had Justin Fields, you were disappointed, right? 10 fantasy points. Could have been 18, with that last-second Hail Mary, or 16 rather, if you're in 4-point touchdown league with that last-second Hail Mary, but it was dropped. But Justin Fields has played well since returning from injury, and really just this year as a whole against poor defenses, right? He played well against Detroit, who has a good run defense, but pass defense, a little suspect in 2 games, 20-plus points. And against Minnesota and Cleveland, not so hot. And I'm going to include Minnesota as a good pass defense right now. They've been playing very, very well as of late. And obviously Cleveland, we know that they are a very, very good defense. But even before he was hurt, right? Denver and Washington, he was able to kind of light it up. Hadn't played well before that. The other great thing about playing Arizona, right? They're not great against the pass, is they can't stop the run at all. They're giving up 153 rush yards over their last 4 games. And the good thing for Fields, they don't really have a solidified running back, right? They can't decide if it's Roschon Johnson, Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert. They can't decide which order to go in, which means they're going to need to rely on Fields a little bit to run the ball in this one. Last game, obviously, he only had 3 carries. Not what you want to see, but we've seen him have 18. We've seen him have 15, 10 since returning from injury. I expect those rushing attempts to be up, and so then you want him in your starting lineup this week. Our first running back is Mr. DeAndre Swift, and I know if you're a DeAndre Swift manager, you're probably like, Cameron, I can't do it right now. 4 straight games with under 10 fantasy points. Others feel like, I don't have a choice. I have nobody else. It's him or I start Keaton Mitchell, who's on the IR, right? That might be your situation as well. Trust me, I get it. But they do play the Giants this week. They are at home against the Giants in a must-win game. It feels like it is a statement game for not only themselves, but just their fans in general, to get everyone kind of back in and like, okay, we got to buy into the Eagles come playoff time right now. This is the game to get right. Giants are allowing 23 fantasy points a game over the last 4 games to the running back position. The reason Swift has been lower in fantasy point totals is he just hasn't found the end zone. And obviously we knew that could happen with the fact that just Jalen Hurts just runs the ball in, right? 14 rushing touchdowns so far this year, tied the NFL QB record. That was something I didn't think he would touch. I didn't think he'd go hit, and he went out and did it. But I think the Eagles are going to try to impose their will. Swift saw 18 carries last game. I'd be shocked if he's under 16 in this one. And if he scores a touchdown, right, we're looking at a 17, 18-point fantasy week. Our first wide receiver is Mr. Mike Evans. And some of you might be going, Cameron, why are you giving me such an obvious one? But I do know that there's others of us out here who are going, hey, 1 point 2 weeks ago, 15 this last week's pretty good, but Chris Godwin kind of took over. And now they're playing Jacksonville, who just held Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers to less than 3 fantasy points. Should I be starting him? And that's why he's on this list, because I don't want you to get cute with it. There's going to be a couple other guys on here that are like, obvious. Some of you are like, obviously we're starting. But some of you are, I don't know, they're in my lineup. But there's 2 more guys coming up here who I'm questioning. And they may seem obvious to other people, but for me, they're real questions that I'm having right now of should I start. And so that's why they're on this list. That's why Mike Evans is on here. Baker's been playing great as of late, right? He had 4 touchdowns last week, 2 touchdowns the week before. And yes, Jacksonville played good against Baltimore from a passing perspective, but Jacksonville's been leaking points to the fantasy wide receivers 6 of their last 7 games before that one. They had given up at least 14 points to a wide receiver on a week. So Mike Evans is an elite touchdown threat. He is the guy in this offense. 11 touchdowns so far this year. 10 games with a touchdown of 15 played so far. Don't get cute. Don't try and go Noah Brown or Deontay Johnson or, one of these guys that played well last week. Stick with Mike Evans. Stick with what you know. Take the for sure points because he's also got that same upside. Next is Trey McBride, our tight end, the only tight end on this one. He should be viewed as a top 4 tight end at this point, right? I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I'm getting away with this one because he should be. I think he's a top 4 dynasty tight end. I think next year we're going to be seeing a ton of tweets come out that say, don't draft Sam Laporta when you can take Trey McBride around 2 rounds later, right? I think they're both going to be great, but I do think, Trey McBride is going to be in that same tier next season as well. And guys, since week 8, he is first in target share, targets per route run, and yards per route run among all tight ends. He's been playing fantastic. There's nothing not to like about Trey McBride as of late. So you need to make sure that he's locked in your starting lineup. There are only 3 tight ends I would start over him. TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, and Travis Kelce. That's it. Everybody else, you're sitting in favor of Trey McBride this week. That's how good I think he can be. And he gets a plus matchup against Chicago, who's played poorly against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. Our second quarterback on this list, right, I usually do a guy that I think is a must start no matter what. And then this guy is, if you're lost CJ Stroud, who do I go with? Who's the guy that I don't think is going to miss this week? It's Baker Mayfield. Jacksonville's given up the 3rd most points to quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks. Baker is getting hot at the right time. 20 points, 29 points in his last 2 weeks, and he just diced up a pretty decent Green Bay defense. 22 of 28, 381 yards, and 4 tutties against them. I mean, he looked really, really good in that game. I mean, took a couple sacks. You're like, Baker, why are you doing that? But throwing the ball, like, you were very happy if you were a Tampa Bay fan, if you were starting Baker last week. And so now in another good matchup where they must continue to win if they want to win that NFC South, if they want to make it into the playoffs. I think Baker shows up again. I think Baker is a guy that you lost CJ Stroud. Baker is the guy that you lock in. I think he's going to end up being a top 10 option this week. Our second running back, Mr. Breece Hall. He was another guy like Mike Evans that some of you were like, obviously I'm starting Breece Hall. But others of you were like, man, did you see last week? 2.8 points. He only saw 2 targets, only had 1 catch. He couldn't get anything going on the ground. They sat Zach Wilson halfway through. How can I trust him this week? Well, he is the PPR king, right? I think last week was the fluke. 5+ receptions in each of the last 4 games before that. 6, 7, 8, 9 targets in those 4 games. And now he plays the Commanders, who are the worst defense in the league, run against the run and against the pass. Just are the worst offense in the league. I saw someone say a stoppable offense against a movable defense. I think that's a great quote to describe this game. But I think Breece Hall, from a fantasy perspective, is going to be able to get it done. The Commanders are allowing 7 running back targets per game and 4.8 yards per carry on the ground. Right, Breece has not been good running the ball, but the receiving work has been there. I think that stays. I think that's going to be part of the, a focal part of the offense this week in order to just get him moving, get this offense, give him some sort of juice, some sort of life. So Breece Hall needs to be locked in. I'm starting him over. I have in a dynasty league this week. I'll just share with you guys real quick my predicament. Christian McCaffrey is obviously in. My other 4 running backs, Breece, Travis Etienne, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler. I'm starting Breece over the other 3. I'm also starting him over DeMonta Smith this week. That's where my confidence level lies in Breece Hall, and that's where I think it should for you as well. I think he has top 5 upside this week, even though it could be another ugly game for this Jets offense. Our second wide receiver and our last wide receiver on this list is Jordan Addison. He has been amazing with Justin Jefferson on the field. 16, 16, 11. He just scored 0 in week 4, but he only played 50% of snaps. He was a little banged up in that game. 18 against Kansas City, and then 29 this last week. He gets open. He's a touchdown threat when Justin Jefferson's on the field, and it's just because before, the defense is going to focus on Jefferson. They're going to focus on Hawkinson. Now everything is focused on Justin Jefferson. Everything is focused on stopping him. Jordan Addison is getting more free releases. Jordan Addison seeing way less double coverage, almost 0. So he's getting open a lot more. Detroit's been soft against wide receivers this season, right? They've been great against the run, but they've been soft against wide receivers. Jordan Addison needs to be locked into your lineup. I have another league where I'm playing Tyler, another one of the fellas this week. and I am starting Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson in that league. So, you know what? I'm relying on the Vikings pass attack this week, but I do believe in it. I think that I actually have a good shot because they're playing Detroit and because having both of them on the field at the same time actually benefits each other. And our final player is a running back. It's Mr. Chuba Hubbard. He's playing the Packers, who have a soft run defense. They do. They've had a soft run defense all year. Over the last 5 weeks, they're giving up 104 rushing yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry. On top of that, Chuba Hubbard's volume has been ridiculous. It's Chuba Hubbard. I don't know why I keep saying Chuba Hubbard. It's because I'm what's that gum? I can't come up with that off the top of my head. But that's why I keep saying that. Chuba Hubbard, volume has been insane. 25, 23, 22 carries over the last 3 weeks. I think he sees another game like that. They're trying to protect Bryce as much as they can from having to throw the ball. Obviously, last week they were in just awful weather. But I don't know if it's necessarily the weather is the reason that they're just going back to running the ball so much. I think they just want to take it out of Bryce's hands. So he's got double-digit fantasy value just on volume alone. You add in maybe a potential touchdown, maybe some receiving work here and there. I think Hubbard is a safe start this week. I would put him in as a flex in pretty much every lineup I have except for one dynasty team just because it's a little more built out. Alrighty, guys, that wraps it up. Like I said at the beginning, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I will talk to you after Christmas next week. We got the podcast coming out tomorrow. We have Lucas's player prop video coming out on Friday. So, guys, there's still more content coming out on our page. You just won't see me, so I just wanted to be able to wish you a Merry Christmas. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. But we will see you guys next week. Deuces.